Hello and welcome back for a second episode of Growing California Poppies from Seeds. It's 2023 June, day 96. So I'm casting over this footage, narrating a year later. That's how far behind I am for some of the saved up footage. And really you saw the beginnings of this series in the first episode and that first really big California poppy. So more popped up from this plant in the weeks and days to follow, but you can see the footage itself doesn't show the California poppies in their full splendor because there's no clear skies, there's no full sun. So due to this Mediterranean climate and the proximity of a cold body of water, the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego, a dense fog tends to form in these months in late spring all the way until, sometimes it goes all the way until the end of summer. So you'll have a lot of overcast, uncharacteristically cold days in spring. And it feels like it's almost most of spring, the second half of spring in most years. So this is also from June 2023, day 100. There appears to be some sort of fungal rot. You see the black tips of the leaves there. So this is what happens when you grow in pots using non-dirt mediums. So this is cocoa coir. And I believe that if I had land and could just grow these naturally in the dirt, then things would be much different. You wouldn't see these kinds of symptoms. So there's some droopy petals there despite the cocoa coir looking visibly moist in this footage. And you can see all these flowers came from the first mover. And you can see to the left there's one that has already shed. There's one in the center as well, and they'll be developing that long seed pod. So there are a bunch of other California poppy plants in this planter, but they're much later to develop, and there's some kind of bug there that's feeding, perhaps on the plant itself. The flowers are brilliant, but the sun's not out, and for the first few clips in this video, there is no full sun. So you can't see the orange yellow in all of its splendor. You can see the younger plants here, and there's also some leaf rot for some of these as well. So if you'll recall in the first video of this series, everything looked really healthy and verdantly green, but now you can see like the cold and wetness and just growing in cocoa coir led to this sort of leaf rot of the older leaves. So this is 2 days later. So I was very excited to get footage of these California poppies because this was my first season. I do have a second season underway in which I have much more spectacular footage because I got a new cell phone, and also the skies were more clear during spring of 2024. So 2023 was quite annoying. It was just like really cold. The same case is true for many days in May and April in 2024, but it's not quite as bad as 2023 was. So the weather, the skies typically don't clear up until summer, and even then you're going to have a lot of days like this. But when you get to August and beyond, all the way until usually December, it's like clear skies, it's hot, all the foliage, all the scrubs on the hills, the chaparral appears dead and withered and brown or yellow. So that's our climate here in San Diego in a nutshell. So this flower is on its last legs. So you can see that the petals start to droop when the flowers are more than a few days old. So I'd say the life cycle of your typical blossom is maybe 3 days in which it appears beautiful and fresh, and the petals have a lot of turgor pressure. Usually the second day is the best, and the first day you see them there's this little green sheath that's almost translucent that gets shed off, and then the flowers appear usually very small, especially if there's many going on at the same time. And then by day 2, I think the flowers are in their prime, or sometimes maybe even day 3, they still look very brilliant. And then by days 4 and 5, you see a pretty big drop off, which is disappointing for the overall aesthetic of the plant. So this is day 108, a rare day of partial sunlight. It's still not fully bright, but this was in the morning, or maybe close to noon, I think. And you can see that flower's on its last legs. Yeah, you could just basically examine the center and you know, the erectness of the petals. So once you see 1 or 2 start to droop, you know the flowers on the downside. So it's a very beautiful blossom. Unfortunately, it doesn't last for all that many days, but not everything can be like an orchid and just you know, maintain perfect flowers for weeks and weeks. Plus, orchid flower petals are much more robust. So yeah, the other thing is the foliage, and you know, I've toyed with the idea of trimming these things, but I won't address any of that until season 2, which is something I'll be working on probably right after this. So you can look forward to another California poppy video for the start of season 2, the first half of it. So yeah, the rest of this video is pretty much footage like this, and the visitors that come visit the plants in terms of from the insect world and pests and so on. But you can see there's many more flowers on the way for that first mover, but the foliage is looking rather sparse. So overall, I would say there's something to be desired, a lot left to be desired in terms of this growing medium. And I address this in some of my 2024 videos. Well, you'll see them going forward, but somebody suggested Epsom salts, and I hadn't used Epsom salt for like ages and ages, probably over a decade, and I think that really helped, but I'll talk about that in the second season. So this is day 129, was it? And you can see in these 3 small planters that tend to, I mean, you know, the space runs out very quickly if you try to grow a fruit tree in those. So I just stopped growing my fruit trees in those and used the remaining cocoa coir to grow California poppies. But you can see they're coming along nicely. And now that the sun's out more often, it's July in this clip, it appears the foliage is doing better. So it's a paradox. In the wild, California poppies like a lot of rainfall, and they don't do too well if it's all like constantly cold and wet, I believe, but they also need it to preserve soil moisture. This plant requires a lot of water, but as you can see, if I overwater the cocoa coir, then the leaves start rotting. So at this point, the first mover was a bit overgrown. This is a theme that'll play out in season 2 much more significantly as I learn how to grow these better. And yeah, so for now, let's just enjoy the blossoms, and I'll talk about the other stuff later. I learned a lot of lessons along the way. So the plants are doing better now. I have some still photographs, as you can see, mixed in throughout this video, just for greater clarity, so you can enjoy the beauty and look at all the details without having to pause. And in this strip that gets the most sun on the left side, I sowed a bunch of seeds, but they're not doing well. More on that later. So this is again footage from July. It's day 131. This is a very gentle, beautiful bumblebee. I think I have seen this species before in San Marcos. Currently I'm in Carlsbad. So there's 5 species that I found online that could be living in San Diego. Yellow-faced bumblebee, Sonoran, black-tailed, and California and crotches bumblebees. So I had to look at all the pictures and look at a close-up, which I'll show later on. But this bee was actually very tame, even though it was sort of a windy day. But wind is the norm here in the hilly environment of Carlsbad, and of San Diego in general, and Southern California. So in general, it's just quite the windy state. And yeah, that bee seems to be hovering very, very gently and slowly and having a hard time landing. And in 2024, I have seen a bee recently that looks exactly like this. I have no idea if it's from the same colony. Yeah, I haven't looked up much on this bee species, but there are a lot of native bees and bee flies that love the California poppies. This has the most showy flowers. So I'll have other kinds of flowers like ice cream bean flowers and other kinds of wildflowers going on, especially in 2024. And they all just like make a beeline straight for these beautiful orange yellow blooms. So it's the most attractive blossoms for us, but also for insects and pollinators as well. And the ice cream bean tree, it's big. Birds come and feed on it. I'm not sure if they're feeding on the extra floral nectaries, but wasps definitely have like yellow jackets. So there's a lot of pollinators, big, small, and medium size, that stop by. And I always like seeing bumblebees. When I was a kid, I lived in New York State, and we had those eastern bumblebees, which are much bigger because that environment is a forest environment. It's much wetter. And I used to catch them with my hands and play with them for a while. Put them in like a plastic cage for a while and then just let them go. So yeah, I found out I was actually immune to the stings because one day I caught one and it stung me, and then I just pulled out the stinger and nothing happened. I didn't feel anything, no swelling. So yeah, yellow jackets are a totally different story. Those things just hurt. But yeah, you can see in these three little planters behind, there's the beginnings of their own little blooms. So this is what it looks like. It's just extremely overgrown after a while. And this is again more footage from July. So I figured out this is a yellow-faced bumblebee. I have no idea whether it's the same one or not. The pollen bags on its legs match the color of these California poppies. And then you can see a little some kind of pollinator. I don't know what that is. It just came over there. It doesn't quite look like a European honeybee. So also in July, I noticed one day when I came back at night, there were these caterpillars. So I've seen these during the 2019 California poppy super bloom in Lake Elsinore. I just saw like one here, one there, just walking across the ground. And it seems like this one planter is infested. You could see one on the stem there. There are all sorts of larval instars there. I think these are mostly just napping because it's dark. So they have unlimited food, and this is one of the reasons why everything in these planters eventually just shriveled up or got destroyed. I just noticed a lot of loss of green mass in volume over the next few weeks. And then yeah, they didn't do very well. So you can already see there's some leaf withering. It's also possible that there's just like some kind of fungal rot. But all the California poppy plants out here seem to have, foliage that's a little more gray on the grayish green side than I'd like. They had like one or two blooms, like some of them, and even these started to get too long and heavy for their own good and just started tilting over. So this marks the end of season 1. This is from August. I think there was a little bit of overcast weather again. So Faugust, if you will. So these are two very big bird poop caterpillars. They don't eat California poppy plants. And you can see what I was talking about earlier. This California poppy plant is on its last legs, and it wasn't very productive whether I watered it or not. So Yeah, at this point, the series basically wrapped up because in that tall planter that I was showing you footage of for the first 15 minutes of the series, it's basically like, yeah, the first mover shriveled up and then the rest followed suit, and then everything basically folded very quickly. And being the first season of my California poppy growing, I didn't know whether that was to be expected or not, but I have a much bigger planter that's growing California poppies in 2024 currently. And it remains to be seen whether I could maintain like a year-round super bloom. Well, not a super bloom, but just in my front yard. So yeah, the other bird poop caterpillar left. This was footage from when I got home after work later on. It just left to form chrysalis on my Joshua tree planter. So this one hung out for a while and then it disappeared. Probably got eaten by a bird or a lizard. So thanks for watching, and please stay tuned for season 2, which is coming soon.